Hey, everybody, I want to welcome you back to the next project conversations. And our goal in this thing is to bring some of the best and brightest minds from different areas, not just the church. Today, I have somebody that I consider one of the best minds in diversity and inclusion in corporate America. She has led both on Wall Street and in Silicon Valley. She has been fighting for a more diverse workforce. So right now, as jobs and job security and the shift to virtual workspaces and work from home has dominated the news, I feel as believers and people that are having this discussion, it behooves us to have somebody that can really speak to this. So would you welcome Lybra Clemons to the next project conversation? How you doing, Lybra?
I'm good. I'm good. This is my first time doing something like this. I feel like a celebrity.
You are a celebrity. You are a celebrity. One of the things
Yeah. In my mind, in my own head, I'm a celebrity.
I want you to explain to people what diversity and inclusion is. It's a pretty new field. A lot of people don't understand what it really is. They have some perceptions, but I really want you to break it down from the inside.
Yeah.
What is diversity and inclusion?
So it's interesting that you asked that question because you're right. A lot of people have no idea what I do. They have an idea, but it's not exactly what it is. This actually is not a new role or new phenomenon. I started this work about 15, 20 years ago. And on the East Coast, a lot of companies, because they had been sued or for whatever reason, have a professional to come in to ensure that there was diversity in terms of representation at all levels, as well as there was an inclusive work environment. So, and I will give you a little history. So about 15 or 20 years ago, I would say 15 or 20, probably longer than that, there was a huge focus on women in the workplace. This is before BlackBerries. This is before you could take your computers. A lot of women on Wall Street were struggling with their jobs and their careers because they had children or they were trying to balance it all. But you would work on the trading desk and have these crazy hours, all hours of the night. And so there was a movement to keep more women in the workplace and retain them so that they were actually viable contributors to the workforce. And so there's a movement to ensure that these women had a more suitable work environment, and also that the hours were not actually a detriment to their career advancement. So that's how it started years and years ago. Also in response to a lot of sexual harassment. I mean, you think of these in 90s Wall Street, what was happening? It was a boys club, you go to a cigar bar, and all those deals were happening behind the scenes. But to now, all of these companies now are focusing on how to get more people of color, women, LGBT, all the marginalized groups globally to have access to opportunity. And we're talking about this, Pastor Coloma, not just in terms of recruiting, because people think diversity is recruiting and diversity training and affinity groups. That is not what this is about. This is looking at your current systems within a corporation, your recruiting systems, your performance management, your opportunities to advance and be promoted, your compensation. There has to be equity. And so a chief diversity officer with great deal of experience understands the life cycle of an employee and knows what needs to be done to disrupt those systems that are not allowing disadvantaged people or marginalized people to advance within the workforce. So it's a mouthful, but it's very strategic. You're thinking about it from an HR perspective, but you're also thinking about it from the product that you have. When you're thinking about the products that we are pushing out or a particular platform, are you reaching a certain demographic? Is this product targeted at a particular demographic? So it's a number of things from an internal and.
So I have a question for you. How has that diversity and inclusion looked in Silicon Valley in tech? How is it even looking? Because we have a generation of people that are about to enter the workforce in a very different way. And as a pastor in this area, my sense of it is that we haven't done that well with it. there've been some fits and starts, but it hasn't been ingrained into the culture.
Yeah. So Silicon Valley is fairly new to this work, and mostly because they are these are companies that have only been around less than 20 years. And if you think about the evolution of a startup, you think about the founders. Who are the founders? Who do they hire? They're friends from Stanford Business School or MIT. They're usually the same type of people. And so you continue to build your company based on your comfort level and people that you know. I would do the same thing. If I had a business, I'd be calling my best friend from Spelman to run marketing. You know what I mean? So you have to understand that's kind of the evolution of a startup. What happens is that once you recognize, you get to a place where in Silicon Valley, especially given where we live and the fact that there's not a large, diverse group of people here. There's not that the demographics are very small. The Black population, the Hispanic population actually work at a company is very, very small compared to other cities and other industries. And so Silicon Valley is kind of on their back heels when it comes to this. I will give all respect to Jesse Jackson and Rainbow Push coming out here a year ago and pushing these tech companies to start to think about diversity, because we're all users. We're all users of these platforms. One for a tech company wouldn't be able to do this right now. So how do you ensure that people of color, LGBT, folks that are, veterans and people with disabilities access work there to be financially compensated, but also have an opportunity to rise through the ranks without a lot of challenge? And so I think Silicon Valley is new to the game, to answer your question. Two, I think that they are trying as much as they can. I think that what is really happening and what has happened in financial services are the major beneficiaries of this work. So you're seeing a lot of focus on programming to advance women within engineering and technology, which ultimately becomes more white women are actually beneficiaries of this work. So there's a lot of work to do in terms of Black and Hispanic.
So white women have been the main beneficiary of diversity and inclusion to this point, would you say?
Yes, I would venture to say that. Yes,
okay.
I think that, and that's historically how diversity was actually defined by. Not that there wasn't an intention to include people of color or veterans or LGBT, but they were the main drivers behind this work historically. So it was about women in general. And because the numbers were that it just, the numbers are greater, more white women were recipients of from these programs, as with affirmative action. Think about affirmative action, who were the historical beneficiaries of affirmative action have been white women. So right now where we are in Silicon Valley is there are more women who are in senior positions, absolutely. Companies are bragging about the work they're doing in D&I around gender. There's gender equity. A lot of companies are saying, hey, we want to be 50-50, 50% women, 50% men by 2025 or whatever. And I think that's a great, great effort. However, if you're pulling out the various, be honest, the ethnic the ethnic makeup of these women, the Black and Hispanic population, especially Black, we're losing out on that. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of the focus on this Black and Hispanic population that's not benefiting from this work currently.
So I have a question for you. 90 days ago, the workplace was somewhat predictable, but how do you see the current pandemic shifting work? And how does it shift diversity? Because I've seen a lot of posts online where people are like, it could be more diverse because people can be in Atlanta and work for a tech company. But on the other side, there's other people that are reporting that if organizations don't set up distant work correctly, you are automatically taken out of the promotion chain by not being on site. So can you just tell us what you see with the workplace? and where we're going and
I, yeah, I could only speak to Silicon Valley companies because I'm not quite sure that a lot of the traditional companies that are based other places, they're still playing catch up. I would say Silicon Valley companies have some experience, more companies, others that not, with some remote working. But every single company has had to figure out the future of work, and it will look differently. So what I have heard, to your point, is that a lot of D&I efforts have actually gone to the wayside because everyone's so focused on the pandemic and this new future of work. I will say that I have heard companies overemphasize the work on diversity and equity and inclusion as a driver to look at the future of work. So to answer your, yes, there are a lot of factors that you're playing into this. Number one, when you think about certain people's situations, there's a lot of assumptions that everybody can work from home and it's a great environment. You have not, as you, there are a lot of considerations you actually have to take into account when you are thinking about business continuity plans. And business continuity is how we actually stay safe, shelter in place, and all work from home. You don't know people's living situations. You don't know if they have 2 or 3 or 4 kids. You don't know if their parents who don't speak English are sitting at their home. You don't know if they have 2 to 3 different newborn babies where they can't be on calls all the time. Some people don't even want to show their homes because they may not be as proud of where they live versus others. And so you're already seeing a lot of inequity about the future of work and everybody being remote. So, when you're talking about people's environments and situations, you're already at a disadvantage. I'm here by myself. I don't have children. So I actually can get on calls and no one's distracting me. But that's just me. There are people that have different situations going on. So we have to acknowledge that and figure out a plan for that. To your original point and the question that you asked is, a lot of people are really concerned about what it means to actually be sitting in Atlanta when your boss is in California, whether or not you're on video or not and everybody's remote. How do you connect with them? So there were times when people actually go to lunch together. If you had a bad meeting or something happened, let's grab a coffee, and it was more intimate. It's very challenging to have an intimate conversation on you can't see people's body language, don't really understand what they're saying, and all the dynamics that just are distracting you from actually having that conversation with a manager or a very hard conversation with someone who's not doing the work that they can. So, how we are evaluating employees is going to look different. And I think you have to take into account all of the things all these things that are happening, their surroundings, but also I think about people who were introverted out the gate. So they didn't always want to connect with you, but then they're at home and you got to do extra. You got to be extra animated on video. You got to be extra this. And you can't always find that time to connect with people. So it is going to be, that's why I'm really disappointed in those companies who are not actually focused on the diversity, equity, and inclusion in terms of the future of work, because it will drive your future of work. And if you want the best talent out there, people want to feel like they are going to have a fair chance to actually have a good working environment, even if they're not sitting in the actually on video.
So if I'm a Black or brown student, senior year of college, and you could give me, or senior year grad degree, if you could give me some advice dealing with diversity and inclusion, starting career, particularly in tech or Wall Street, what would be like 1 or 2 nuggets that you would give us to say, hey, do these 2 or 3 things? Because you lived it and you advocate it now. So I think you have, I know a lot of experts don't actually live things and don't actually impact things. So I really want to hear from somebody that's had real experience.
So it's so funny because it gets neutered out here in Silicon Valley because there's so many diversity roles. And so they'll just hire someone that ran an affinity group. And they say, oh, this person has great diversity experience, So it is an experienced role. You're right. I have done it a lot and have a lot of experience working in different environments. I would say that for people who are new to this and want to get into diversity and inclusion, my recommendation is that it's, first of all, it's a very shockingly competitive role. Before, nobody wanted to do it. Now, because it's a buzzword, everybody wants to, and everybody thinks they're an expert. And so I think one of the strategies I've given people is there's but so many roles and tons of people applying for it. Where I find a lot of skills that are transferable that contribute to the D&I world are people who actually worked in human resources, have either recruited, was a recruiter, or understands kind of the learning and development. So if you've worked in any aspect of HR, that actually, I pull from those people to join the team when I can. Because you do have a lens of how a company is running from an internal perspective. You know all the systems, because all you're trying to do is disrupt the system. So we need someone that has that experience and understands it. So I give people, especially new people, that kind of those nuggets. The other thing is people don't understand this is analytics. My job is highly analytic. I mean, to be able to look at a diverse dashboard or create one, pull out the data and create a strategy on the fly is like a thing. And it's not that easy. I think people are like, yeah, I got it. It's not that easy to do. So I would recommend those who are in school or interested and can take a statistics course or something around analytics, because everybody's looking for data. And it's not numbers for numbers' sake. And yes, you're not going to be running regressions, but understanding how the data works and what you need to do to actually get to goals and quotas and how you back into it. A lot of people don't understand that is a major part of the role. If you work for a company that acquires another company, you have to understand what the acquisition numbers are going to do to your diversity numbers.
Wow.
And if you don't understand that, the data and the analysis behind it, you're not going to be able to go to your CEO and be like, yeah, so you just acquired this company. Let me tell you how that's going to impact those numbers we're going to release next week. And so I do think that those are really good skill sets to have beyond just working at, I ran an affinity group and I did this training. I just don't, that's not where those are great staff. But I think if you're really looking to market yourself, I think the statistical analysis in any formal HR training actually contributes to a role in D&I.
What numbers do you track as a D&I professional organizationally? Because for a long time, one of my biggest frustrations dealing with organizations, particularly African-American organizations, is we do a lot of anecdotal analysis where somebody tells a feel-good story, and then we base all policies on that. And as you talk about dashboard analytics, what numbers are you really looking at for diversity? Because I think that can help people understand how they need to position themselves in a global perspective when they're looking for jobs, different things like that.
Yeah. So one thing I will say about Silicon Valley is that Silicon Valley companies, and I want to give a shout out to my girl Candace Morgan at Pinterest, because I do believe she was one of the first, and Pinterest was the first to actually go public with their diversity numbers and the diversity data. And those true data points, with the percentage, so there's an overall percentage, there's an overall number of people that work at a company. Then you're looking at it, and by the way, every company, just like every news story, has a way of manipulating the numbers for their story. But the true numbers and the true data are the truth, right? And so, number one, most companies always look at their gender, your total gender numbers. And so, when you're in the United States of America, you can legally identify the following demographics and capture and report on. That's gender, ethnicity, veteran status, and people with disability. Outside of the United States, and this is really important for a global company, the United States, the only thing that's consistent is. So what a lot of companies do is share a gender number because it is a true number because you're encompassing the entire global company. So that gender number, and it's very important because you also see it's a trend. You really see where the company is investing their time and energy. So there's a gender number, which most people say, oh, we're 40%, 46% female and 34%. I don't know how to add today. 54% male. So that's a data point. Then they will break it down in the US only by gender and ethnicity. And that ethnicity is Black, Hispanic, Asian. Those are the three top demographics that most companies will report on. And everybody does all this 2 more races, and you can do whatever it takes, but for the most part, those 3 are the largest demographic. And so that's a true number where you can see that, your Black population at X company is 2%. That's not a good look. That's not a good story. So that's another data point. If you really want to think about how the company is doing, you want to understand the gender and ethnicity by level. Because what a lot of companies have ended up doing, and this is not a Silicon Valley thing, this is just a every company thing, is you're reporting these numbers and you recognize all of your people of color or women are in these very, very junior roles. So the data points for me that are critical, which a lot of companies don't share publicly, and I get it, they don't always have to. I want to understand by level. I want to understand by ethnicity, gender, level. So, and for internal, which they will never share out, but these are important roles. I need to understand percentage of women or people of color who are promoted, right? You want to know that and the retention. Because if you're cycling out Black people every 2 years, we have a problem. It's not it's an inclusive environment issue. And the retention is huge, but also advancement. That advancement data, they're never going to share, but that's what I look at. Because I want to know that if I go to a company and I'm in that same role for 10 years while my other counterparts are advancing, up the ladder and I'm not, we have a problem. So those are the numbers that I focus on. But yeah, retention, I think, is one that people don't focus on as much and some companies don't share. But that to me is the lead indicator.
Now, one of the things that came out of the Central Park incident with Karen, whatever her name was.
Amy,
with Karen.
Amy Collins.
Whatever her name is. There was a tweet that's been reposted across social media. How many times has she said this person's not a team player, or this person is not ready, and they have a gut feeling? I've heard it. Before I became a pastor. Yeah. And right. I just want to know, as a diversity professional, how do you start building systems against those? And I know you, and some of the other people in our circle have had this discussion where this is the most frustrating part of your job. But how do you start building against that? Because we don't want to destroy people.
Right. So there's these catches that make most chief diversity officers cringe. One of them is when you start talking about HBCU students, they're like, can't lower the bar. I literally cringe when they make that comment. We're lowering the bar. What if they can't do the work? Oh, so that makes me cringe. The other one is when someone, not making accusation, is up for a promotion, I'm not sure they're ready. I don't think they understand the culture, all of that. Then it becomes also an issue with recruiting. So what a lot of companies have been really notorious at is the skewed data of interviewing tons of people of color or women, but not necessarily hiring them. So they skew the data a little bit. There's also, well, we're not quite sure, you know, he's not from the same industry, or she's actually hasn't been there long enough, not assuming all the other emotional shoals or anything else. There's always a but.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the systems have to be disrupted. So go with me for a second.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we can do from a performance management, your original question around like how you're evaluating people. That's why I am a huge fan of that very senior level representation.
Mm.
Because the more senior people that you have that are diverse, the more opportunities you will have to be evaluated by people who get you and understand situations.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that they promoting you for promotion's sake, but that's a Silicon Valley thing. They promote people just for promotion's sake because that's what's when small companies, that's what you do. You create a great product. Oh yeah, you get promoted. You know, now companies are putting in some proper systems to make sure that it's managed well. But I think that you have to have sure that there are senior people in decision making roles to start to disrupt all the bias of the same people making the same decision about who needs to be part of their inner circle. So I think that is one disruptor, which is why my entire approach is not all about just overall workforce diversity. I'm all about that executive level, that C-suite level, that senior to mid-level
Mm-hmm.
diversity, because those are the people making decisions. The second around, pushing out some version of the Rooney Rule to ensure that there is a diverse interview panel as well as diverse slate of candidates before you move forward, especially at those senior level roles. And that gets hard, challenging. But if you have the same types of people interviewing, they're groupthink and they're making the same decisions and coming up with the, oh, well, you know, this person wasn't strong enough. But if you have one or two people who are of that same orientation or ability or ethnicity, they may consider and see things differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of diversity folks are kind of institute version of Rooney Rule, which is to ensure that there's a diverse slate of candidates and a diverse interview panel to disrupt that group thing. So there are tons of ways that people are looking at how to disrupt these systems. Another thing, I've seen a lot of people do, a lot of tech companies are starting to evolve their HR so that you are doing a 360 evaluation. So you have people that are below you and above you, and you get a number of reference points that will evaluate you. So it's not just coming from your manager, who may or may not be biased, no matter what color they are. They're instituting different ways to actually help evaluate your performance that's not so personal. And that's a tougher one to manage. That's tough because I've managed people, so I know.
Yes.
But I've also reached out to other people who have a different perspective from me to give me the real, give me another way of looking at how I'm evaluating someone on my team.
Yeah.
So,
one of the things I really love is that you've made a very complicated thing very clear today to us. Sister Marjorie from DC definitely is enjoying this talk. The one thing I want to really ask is, as a Black or brown person going into the job market with the last 2 minutes that we have, can you give me one thing that you tell me to focus on? Because we know that work is shifting. You've been in the back, you've been at the big table, you know what the conversations are. There are a lot of people that are at mid, trying to break through to C-suite level or just coming into workplace. What's one thing that we can do to A, protect ourselves from the foolishness, and B, best shield or push off the foolishness?
One of the things I just got off my coaching call, but one of the things I've had to recognize is that you will always deal with foolishness. So if you go in thinking you're not, you're going to be completely frustrated and jaded. The second thing I did when I moved out here to take the job at PayPal, I looked at their website to see how many Black people were on there, and the website shows the most senior ranking people. And at that time, there were 3 senior Black people at PayPal, and I was like, I'm all in, because and that was our general counsel, head of HR, and another HR person. That's like unheard of. So I always, and I had to, and there was not a Black person on the board yet, but within a couple of months that I started, they had a Black board member. So those things, when you're looking at these tech companies, if they don't have a Black person in their C-suite and the highest ranking Black person is their head of D&I, and that person's actually not even a senior, that makes me a little concerned. And they don't have people on their board. That's concerning. So those are the things I look at. The other thing, like for me, it's harder to do when you don't know. I go on Glassdoor. I read all those comments because the culture of the place is critical. And if you know that there are some well-intentioned, good people, that also alleviates a lot of anxiety. It's not gonna, it's not gonna eliminate it. But well-intentioned people, I make calls to people who have worked there. I do my homework because I just can't afford to step into another trap. And so we have to get rid of this idea that you're going to step to utopia, because it is not. It never is. It's made of people. People have problems. They're human beings with flaws. We have to just accept that. I'm a human being with a flaw too. So we got to understand how we show up, what our responsibility is, but also look at the different signs to show if people are really committed to this kind of work.
Wow. Well, Lybra, thank you so much for sharing today. This has been really informative, and we've already talked about D&I multiple times. Thank you again so much. We got to bring you back, because I know in the fall, after we deal with the 40 million unemployed and home and this topic will evolve. So we'll have to bring you back in the future. Thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for watching Next Project Conversation for this week. As you can see, we had 2 dynamic guests. Next week, I'm really excited to have from who was with us yesterday. We're going to have a part 2 of our conversation. Given what's happening in Georgia, New York, and Minnesota, we felt like we needed to have a more in-depth discussion around race and theology and evangelicalism. So we will see you next Wednesday for that. And next Thursday, we continue. We have Mayor Regina Wallace-Jones. She's a tech executive, the only Black mayor in Silicon Valley, and she's a Stanford grad. So she's seen the Valley. She's seen all the activity from different places. So I'm looking forward to having an amazing conversation with her as she has prepared her city for the coronavirus outbreak and really helped them step up. So thank you so much. Can't wait to see you next week. Bye.